we're also building the curriculum from scratch with the parents and the kids' approval and engagement.
Welcome to Transforming the Toddler Years, a Core 4 parenting podcast for conscious, cycle-breaking parents ready to turn toddler tantrums into teachable moments. Hi, I'm Cara Tyrrell, a lifetime lover of littles, mom to 2 grown and flown girls, and an early childhood educator. Through the show, I teach you my collaborative parenting methodology for nurturing your little human's mind, body, and spirit. Because how you connect and collaborate in the first 5 years is how you raise happy, healthy kids who grow into the best version of themselves and find true success in school and life. Welcome back, Toddler Tribe, to the Transforming the Toddler Years podcast. It's summer, and so I'm taking the opportunity to re-release a few heavy-hitting episodes featuring guests that have incredibly relevant messages for you. I am going to be bringing back the idea of raising anti-racist kids. This is the summer to think about that. We're going to be exploring how to find the right preschool. What does kindergarten readiness really mean? And if you don't want to send your kids to a public institution, what are some homeschooling options for you? As you continue through the fun and the sun and the family memory making of summertime, I'm going to walk you through these re-releases with important, amazing humans that have messages that cut deep. Today's guest is Kimberly Gawne, the visionary founder of Star Students, a trailblazing educational organization dedicated to nurturing the brilliant minds of tomorrow. Kimberly truly believes that every child has the capability to achieve big things and make an impact on the world, but that currently they are being underestimated instead of overestimated. She has an innate ability to connect with and inspire students, and this led to the creation of Star Students, a platform offering innovative teaching methods, interactive learning, and tailored attention, revolutionizing the educational landscape. If you're interested in learning more about the current educational model and how you can tailor it to meet your kids' specific needs so that they become really high achievers that have a lifelong love of learning, this is absolutely the episode for you. Kimberly, oh my goodness, I am so excited you're here to talk to us about education, the current climate of students and what they're capable of, and what you have to offer that's a little outside the box, but meets them where they are. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here. I appreciate your time. I'm sure we're going to have a great conversation because we've had multiple great conversations before this.
Yes, we absolutely have. And we totally align in the idea that education does not fit in a box. Kids do not fit in boxes. And therefore, we need to create space that meets kids where they are. So why don't you introduce yourself, tell people a little bit about Star Students and your journey. What led you from teaching in a classroom to where you are today?
Sure. I am a graduate of Teachers College. I went to school in Ontario, Canada to get my BA, and then I went to Teachers College to get my B.Ed. I've wanted to be a teacher since I was a very little girl. That's always something that I grew up not idolizing, but as a career path. My dad is actually responsible for that. He was someone I might call an alternative educator in today's space, which is ironic given the path that I'm now following. But I grew up in that sort of a household and in that sort of mindset. And so to me, when you choose to be a teacher, what else do you do other than go and be a government employee, right? And so that's what I set myself up to do. I graduated actually, like literally right at the start of the COVID era, if you want to call it that. I graduated in April of 2020. And so there was a lot going on at that point for people who can remember that. And in the teaching world, there was no longer that job security or job stability that was there. Not only that, but there were, if I may speak frankly here, there were quite a few things that had happened, red flags, we'll say, that had happened throughout my 6 years of post-secondary. And the reaction of the administration and the reaction of the schools to how they handled anything and everything to do with COVID was not my cup of tea. I disagreed with literally everything. And that was something that, like, morally, I just couldn't look past. And I said to myself, do I want to start my career on this foot and on this sort of footing? And it's really not what it's going to be. Like, it's not what it's going to be in 5 years or 10 years. It may be even worse. Do I want to do this? And the answer for that was no, I don't. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that I didn't want to teach, but it actually means that I just needed to step outside and find something else. And so that's what I did. And so that's why Star Students became to be at Star Students, because I opened up Star Students and it took off, and it is what it is now.
Amazing. So what I hear you saying, and this is really unbelievable, because there were teachers who had been teaching for a decade, 2 decades when COVID hit, mm-hmm. and they had to adjust in that moment, and it was hard. And they had the foresight. They could see what was coming because historically they knew the students that were coming in. You had that foresight, and you hadn't even officially started your teaching career yet. And that tells me that, you are true. Your heart is pure, that this is exactly the path that you are always meant to take, because you can see how the environment affects kids' learning. Wow. Yeah. So what a journey you went on. So that was a huge decision, right? I can only imagine. I mean, I'm the child of 2 educators as well. This has also been kind of my life's path. And when I graduated from grad school with my master's degree in education, and then did something slightly different, my parents were like, whoa, what's going on? You did 6 years of work for this decision. And so that was your crossroads.
Yeah. And it was a decision that had to be made, right? And I do recognize, it's funny that you bring that up with other teachers that had been in the field for 10 to 15 to 20 years, right? And I saw myself kind of looking at those teachers and, like, no judgment whatsoever, right? Whatever decision that you as a person had to make, because everybody's situation is different, right? I just looked at it and I had the opportunity to step outside of it at that point. Whereas I know teachers who were, maybe like 10 years from retirement or 5 years from retirement, and teaching, as I'm sure you understand, is a very demanding life. Not a life sentence, because it's not a sentence, but it's a very demanding profession, right? And it leaves very little outside of teaching for anything else. And so for teachers who were, maybe 10 years from retirement or 5 years from retirement, it's a much different decision as to, like, okay, I'm just going to throw this to the wind, than it was for me, right? Yes, I'd gone through my 6 years of post-secondary, but I still have the opportunity. I still have the time, so to speak. And I still have the opportunity to do something else with my papers, which is what I did.
So the key word that you just said is opportunity. And mm-hmm. one thing that I know for sure after coaching and teaching so many parents about this COVID experience in the last few years is that we can see things one of 2 ways. We can see them as this tragic experience that's happening to us, or we can see them as a gateway to an opportunity to choose to do things differently. And mm-hmm. that's what you did. And you created Star Students. So let's talk about the programming that you took, the best of everything that you believed kids need, and you put it together in a way that it's accessible as I'm going to put air quote here, homeschool option. But you're going to clarify for us that homeschooling does not mean doing schooling at home.
Yes, that's right. 100%. 100%. You're right. So Star Students is a homeschooling, what we would say is a homeschooling option. I like your air quotes. A homeschooling option company, right? Where we provide different options for parents who want to give their kids a superior education and a superior learning experience to the public schools. And I'd even argue to the private schools. So in brief, what Star Students does at the very top level, we will take customized curriculum, we will take personalized curriculum, and we will actually teach that to your children. I get many people who they hear that and they're like, oh, okay, so it's essentially just hiring private teachers. Yes, in a sense, but we're also building the curriculum from scratch with the parents and the kids' approval and engagement. So one thing that I saw in the public schools and some private schools, and just in general in the educational world, was a lack of engagement, and that really bothered me. Particularly when you talk about middle school and high school kids, where they just sit down at their desk and do their work, and they're not really engaged in what they're doing, and they're just doing it because it's school. I didn't like that in the classroom, like in my experiences in the classroom. I did not like that because to me, learning should be enjoyable. Learning should be something you want to do. Learning should be something that you're excited for. And if you don't have that, well, then what do you have? You end up getting an adult who doesn't want to do anything other than just work a 9 to 5 job. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you don't do anything outside of that, right, then that what is your higher calling, right, in life? What are you here for? Are you just here to take up space, or are you here to actually contribute something, right? And so I said that one of the things that I wanted to do was to make sure that we engage kids in their learning, because it starts there, right? If you trace things back, I'm a big person for like tracing things back to the source. Don't just put a Band-Aid on something, trace it back to the source and let's fix the source. One of the sources of a lack of engagement from a lot of children in school is because they're just not interested in the material. They're just not. And so how do we, A, make it interesting for them, and B, actually do so with an educational framework, right? And with an educational mindset. So what we do at our top level is we will take curriculum with my teachers and myself. We will make recommendations to the parents. We'll say, here are your options for curriculum. They will then go and approve it. That was another really big thing that I wanted to make sure we did, was involve parents. They will go and approve it, go through it, etc. We will make adjustments if we need to. Then we design the curriculum, and then we actually teach the curriculum, myself and my other teachers. I don't do all the teaching. There's not enough of me to do all the teaching, which is why I have a fantastic team around me as well.
Wow. Oh my gosh, the words that I'm hearing: go back to the source, inspire a lifelong love of learning in these kids, collaborate with parents, and make these families part of the learning process. Just the transformation that you must see, right? Normally with public school settings or private school settings, it's on the kid to come home and transfer that learning, or even communicate what they've been learning. And often that falls very much through the cracks. So this is just too beautiful. Hey, Mama, you know that it takes a village to raise a child, but did you know you can choose your village? That's why I've created a virtual village for you with all kinds of like-minded mamas. They're conscious, they're collaborative, they're intentional. Their goal is to raise really good human beings who will grow up to add value to this world. Join us today in our free private community on Facebook. Use the link in the show notes, and let's transform the toddler years together. I want to tag into something that you said and ask you this. That engagement piece is really crucial for sure. And that love of learning. So these COVID kids, I work with people who had COVID babies, right? Pandemic babies. or toddlers. And we're seeing at that early entry to school level, kindergarten and first grade, that these kids are already struggling. There's already a gap to fill. Not that there wasn't before, but it's bigger now. And we don't want to lose them. We don't want them to feel frustrated and overwhelmed by learning right out of the gate. But it's an arc that's applied to every single student at every age and every stage. So, what are you seeing? How are you feeling like the personalization of curriculum is allowing kids to kind of regain those learning milestones instead of feel overwhelmed by them?
A really good question. I do see, especially in the younger ones that we work with, if they haven't been, I don't want to say socialized, but for lack of a better word, that's what I'll use. If they haven't been socialized appropriately, they are very behind in their social emotional learning skills. And people might say, well, oh, what does that have to do with academics? Because social emotional is completely different than academics. Well, no, one affects the other. Because if you don't have the social emotional skills that you are supposed to have at a certain age, you are quite literally incapable, like mentally incapable of picking up on the academic things that you're supposed to. There's a concept, and I wish I could remember the name, but it's escaping me at the moment. There's a concept, it's like a brain freeze. It's like a fight or flight, and your brain, a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And when people are afraid, when you're in a state of overstimulation or you're in a state of fear, your brain is literally incapable. This is how we're biologically wired. Like, this is science. Your brain is literally incapable of picking up on anything new and let alone retaining that information. So when you have, as you say, COVID babies that are raised in nothing else but a lot of fear and perhaps a lot of misinformation and perhaps a lot of things that are not considered to be safe or positive for their environment, that's when you get issues with the social emotional learning. And it's not their fault. That doesn't mean that we have a generation of stupid kids. That's not what it means at all. We have a generation of children who just have not been given the skills that they need to be able to cope with the outside world or to be able to interact even with the outside world. And a lot of that has to do with a lack of social emotional skills. So I'm 100% on board. It's a little bit different for older kids who already kind of are in the development stage, but I'm 100% on board with younger children. They need to be able to practice their social emotional skills. They need to be able to practice that learning, or the academics. Don't even bother. You're wasting your time. You're quite frankly wasting your time.
If you could see me right now, I'm like bouncing in my chair. Amen to everything that you just said. I teach that the social emotional learning, the interpersonal skills, and the alignment and regulation and physical body control matter more than the cognition. So I am 100% with you on that. So let me ask the hard question then, because if this is so vital, and it is, right? Because this survival mode that we've been in for so long seems to be prevailing. We all still feel like we're stuck in that habitual survival mode. So if that's the case, and parents are sitting there thinking, well, I'm on board with you, but that virtual learning thing didn't work for my kid. Learning through a screen was really hard for them. Why would I choose to do that? So tell us how your program is different and meets these kids' needs virtually without absorbing their whole life and without putting them in front of a screen all the time.
Absolutely. One of my favorite questions, because people always say, well, oh, like you're 100% virtual. Like, well, you can't learn online. Okay. First of all, yes, you can learn online. Second of all, when a lot of people think of online education, they think of how, again, the public education system, just in general, in like worldwide, globally, how public education handled the switch to online learning. Like, I'm sorry, they completely botched it. if I can just be honest. Like they completely botched it. And like, so I understand where parents are coming from when they say, well, online learning, that didn't work for my child. Of course it didn't work, because you're talking about sticking a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old or even a 14-year-old in front of a computer for how many hours a day in a classroom of how many kids with how many teachers to support them. Of course it's not going to work. Listen, public school, I'm getting a little bit carried away here, but public school barely works as it is. Public school, when you send children to school, barely works as it is. It's more about classroom control and classroom management than it is about the actual academics, and than it is about the actual engagement of these students in their learning. So why would it work online? Of course it wouldn't, because you don't have you don't have the ability to, right? And again, this is not to say that teachers don't do a great job in public schools. Let me make that clear. Most of them care very much about the kids that they are with, but they're restricted and they're limited by all of these other expectations that are unrealistic. It's not the teachers and it's not the kids. It's the system that is broken.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you. Can I ask you one thing about that right now? Because the expectation that you just brought up, as a teacher, that's one of the reasons I left the classroom. And this was way pre-COVID. I just felt like I wasn't able to give the students what I knew I was capable of giving them because of all the other things that were being required of me. So first of all, let's just shout out all the teachers. We are amazed by you. I am amazed by you. I come in and I consult and I'm like, I cannot even believe the extra work you're still having to do. So kudos to you for sticking in there and serving those kids. What about the expectations that exist for the kids? Because what I'm running around telling everybody is you have a new generation of kiddos who've had a different start to life and a different skill set that they bring to the classroom. But you haven't changed the expectations that you are benchmarking them by. So they're all not checking those boxes. Those expectations have to shift too, don't they?
I think yes, when you talk about the expectations, like you mean academic expectations?
Yeah. I mean, if they're coming to the classroom and they're socially, emotionally just overwhelmed by what they have to do to engage in that day.
Right.
And like you said, they're not absorbing because they're not open to it quite yet and retaining. And then we take out our same old assessments and we say, hey, but you're supposed to be able to do this.
Yes, that is a very big concern for a lot of teachers and for a lot of parents, really, right? And I see both sides, because I see the argument of, well, the older generation, usually like Gen X and older, will be like, well, in my day, right, like kids could do this and kids could do that and whatever. I'm a millennial, so I'm like right underneath Gen X. Actually, my husband is Gen X, so we have these conversations all the time. And so you have different expectations because you're raising different kids. That doesn't mean that they're not capable of still reaching those same expectations, like academically, of what was done, quote unquote, back in the day, right? I personally am of the opinion that public school is definitely dumbing kids down because it's not giving them the proper tools to be able to look after the social emotional needs and then take them further with the academics, right? And so that's another complication that, back in the day of older school, you didn't necessarily have to worry as much about those social emotional skills because they were there already. They were there already because parents were able to teach those things in a more consistent manner, right? Now we have a different society where parents are not able to teach those things. Teachers are not able to teach those things as consistently as they should be. Right. And so you have this generation of kids, Gen Z, if you want to call it that is just not able to meet those academic expectations. And again, that's not to say that they're stupid. It's not a stupid generation. It's just a generation that doesn't have the proper skills necessary.
Yeah. So you and I both agree that parents really are the primary educator of their child. That doesn't mean that they have to know how to teach them curriculum. It just means that they are the 24/7 model and the primary interactor. And so they are their child's teacher, their first teacher, really. And so with your programming, once you set it up and the parents approve, how long does it really take to do their work every day? And how long can they be out in the world doing experiential learning?
This is something that a lot of people will come at me with kind of like a myth as well, right? Well, they'll say, well, I can't homeschool because I can't homeschool my child. I can't sit them at the kitchen table. I don't have the 7 hours a day. Nobody said you had to bring the school model home with you. That's not what homeschooling is. So the way that we do it, I'll speak just from the programs that we run now from our top level program. So we run class 2 times a week for these families. So we have Tuesdays and Thursdays, and each child has their time with teachers, or each group of children will have their times with teachers. Speaking on groups, we do not teach larger than 4 in a group maximum. That's for high school. If you're talking elementary, it's 3. If you're talking if you're talking kindergarten or grade 1, typically it's one-on-one. And so we will take kids either in their individual slots or in their group slots with their other peers, and we will ensure that they have the appropriate amount of time that's necessary for each subject, depending on what the parent and what the child or what the children have decided, right? In terms of what subjects they really want to focus on and what sorts of curriculums we've designed for them. So the way that we work right now with our families, we run class on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we have different time slots. So we'll have like our first one at like half an hour. That's with the youngest kids. Then we have 3 2.5-hour time slots in which those kids get math, they get English, they get science in whatever version of science we're doing. We have some who are very interested in, for example, electrical. We have others who are very interested in apologetics. We have others who are very interested in kinesiology, right? So when you personalize learning and in either individually or in small groups, you can choose those sorts of subjects, right? But it also doesn't take as long. That's why I said they only have 3 2.5-hour time slots, right? Like we have 3 groups of 2.5-hour time slots that these kids do class in, right? So one child may be doing, let's say, math and science in the first time slot, and then like they're done school for the day, and we'll see them on Thursday when they do English and history, if that's what they're choosing to do, right? The second child in the second time slot, or the second group time slot, may be working on they may work on kinesiology and apologetics, and then that's it. They're done. They just did 2.5 hours of school, right? So it's that sort of pattern. And people say, oh, so like that means that the kids that are in your program are only doing like 5 hours of school a week, the older ones, right? For the younger ones, oh, that's only an hour of school a week. Well, yes, because that's that works for the family. B, these are all of our kids are very smart, very smart. C, they don't need direct instructional time all the time, right? If they choose to do independent learning assignments on their own, they're doing work at home. And you also said another thing that I really want to focus on. You said experiential learning. That is one thing that homeschooling allows parents to do with their children that the regular public school does not allow. And homeschooling with the ways that it's done properly will actually result in children that are better prepared for the real world than public school will ever make them, or even private school to a certain extent. Why? Because they're experiencing real life lessons and they don't have their head stuck in a textbook for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week.
You know what's so wild is you were talking about this 2.5-hour slot. And I remember at my most frustrated moment when I was being pulled in 47 directions as a classroom teacher, I actually sat down, like you said, get to the root of it, right? And I did the math. And I was like, how many minutes a day am I actually teaching my students?
Did you really?
I did, because I wanted to know.
What was the answer you came up with?
2 hours.
Wow.
In the building for 7. My impactful, direct, connected instruction was 2 hours. And I was like, whoa, Okay. The rest of the time, what are we doing? We're learning to walk down a hallway. We are going to specials. We are transitioning to lunch. We are having that assembly. We are doing all the other things.
Having a conversation about classroom management, and this is how we behave in a classroom, figuring out some sort of incident that happened in the hallway or whatever. That's so funny. That's so fun. I mean, not funny, haha, but that's like funny coincidence.
It is. Or it's not,
yeah.
or it makes a lot of sense. Well, Kimberly, I'm just so grateful because there's just so many ways to live this life. Public schools will continue to be part of our culture, and they need to be, and private schools will too, and unschooling will, and world schooling will, and your program, which is this beautiful hybrid of all of those things, will too. I'm reading your background here. It says practice makes progress. Let's teach children how to think, not what to think. Parents, if you want to know more about Kimberly's program, if you travel a lot as a family and you want to be able to do this wherever you are, as long as you have a Wi-Fi connection, Kimberly, how can they learn more about you, your program, and the impact that you're making in education?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. Probably the easiest way is to email me, or you can give me a call. If you type Star Students into Google, it will come right up for you. So you can give me a call. You can email me if you like. Our website is www.starstudents.co, not .com, .co. And so you can find all of my contact information on there. But like I said, if you Google it, it'll come right up for you as well. And I mean, I do work online. I do teach online, so I'm fairly accessible. Feel free to get in touch.
Amazing. And we'll have those links in the show notes. And, Kimberly is offering you a free consultation. So take her up on that, click through, get on the virtual phone here, and introduce your kid. Introduce who they are. I'm a big fan of talking about who kids are, not what they're doing, so that we can lean into that next step for them and personalize it. Kimberly, really grateful for your time. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time out and all of the insights. As I said at the beginning, this was a wonderful conversation. So thank you for having it with me.
Until our next episode, stay mindful and proactive as you transform the toddler years.